Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on Philippine market entry and tax incentive options for PEZA, BOI, and CDC. My name is Orlymae Vinculado, and I'll be your host for today's session. First of all, thank you for taking the time to join us. We have an exciting and informative session planned for you. Whether you are an investor exploring opportunities in the Philippines or a business owner looking to expand, today's topic will provide you with essential insights on how to navigate market entry and maximize available tax incentive programs in the Philippines. So before we dive into the presentations, let me briefly go over today's few house rules. First, you change your name plus company name by clicking participant's icon and hovering your cursor, hand over your name and choosing rename. Be respectful and an active listener so that we always stay on topic. Keep yourself muted unless speaking or engaging in conversation to reduce background noise. Use emojis and the chat feature to react, ask questions, or make comments. All questions will be answered during Q&A portion. So just to give you a brief overview of InCorp Philippines, InCorp Philippines is one of the Asia Pacific's leading corporate solutions providers, and we are present in 9 countries such as Singapore, Australia, Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, China, Malaysia, Philippines, and Vietnam. And we offer services such as secretarial and compliance, product registration, bookkeeping and payroll, taxation, immigration, HR and recruitment, risk assurance, and corporate recovery. And now, without further ado, let me introduce you to our first speaker. Our first speaker is Attorney Esther Lauren Perez. She is the Legal Compliance Director of InCorp Philippines. She helps clients with their legal compliance needs for business registration, product registration, corporate housekeeping, due diligence, and other related concerns. Her area of focus are incorporation, corporate compliance, and business advisory. She took up management at the Ateneo de Manila University and Master of Business Administration at De La Salle University College of Business. She took up her Juris Doctor at Far Eastern University Institute of Law and an IBP member since 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Attorney Esther.
Thank you, Orlymae, for the introduction. And good morning to all our participants today. Thank you for making time for us. So for my presentation, I will give a general introduction on business registration in the Philippines, as well as the available tax incentives through investment programs in the Philippines, including the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, the Board of Investments, and the Clark Development Corporation. So let's begin. Let's start with a simple question. Why the Philippines? Well, why not? In 2023, the net foreign direct investments in the Philippines reached $8.9 billion, distributed among several industries in the Philippines, including real estate, e-commerce, which includes wholesale and retail, construction, tourism, and of course, BPOs in the Philippines. The Philippines is a promising market. In fact, in 2023, the GDP rate, or the gross domestic product rate of the Philippines, was 5.6%. This is the highest GDP rate in Southeast Asia. The GDP is gross domestic product. It is a good sign of the economy's growth. Several reforms or policies have been introduced by the Philippine government in order to entice investors into the Philippines. And this includes, which we'll also be discussing later on, my colleagues and I, tax incentives for those eligible to register with investment promotion agencies, including the Board of Investments, the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, and the Clark Development Corporation. Our ease of doing business score rating is also at 95 out of 190. It's still quite low, but it's getting higher. It used to be much lower than that. In terms of the policies and amendments being rolled out by the government in order to entice foreign investors in the Philippines, Recently, there was an enactment of amendments to the Retail Trade Liberalization Act of the Philippines, which lowered the paid-up capital requirement for retail companies in the Philippines, B2C, business to consumers. Now it's about 100,000 US dollars or 25 million pesos. It used to be $2.5 million. There were also amendments to the tax regulations in the Philippines through the Ease of Paying Taxes Act in the Philippines. Also, as a general rule, in the Philippines, businesses can be 100% foreign-owned. This is important to note. The exception would be if the company would fall under the foreign investment negative list of the Philippines, which would require it to have a certain percentage of Philippine ownership. But as a general rule, companies can be 100% foreign-owned in the Philippines, particularly for industries like BPOs, renewable energy, etc. Digital transformation efforts have also been introduced in order to increase the transparency of government transactions in the Philippines, and the Anti-Red Tape Authority was also promulgated in recent years. Another key thing is the strategic geographic location of the Philippines. The Philippines has always had a good geographic location, the reason why it has been colonized by several countries over the years. In terms of our workforce, the median age range is 25.5 years old. So we have a big and good pool of people to be employed in the workforce. Next slide. So this is an overview of the different types of businesses that we register in the Philippines, or we can register in the Philippines. It falls under three main categories. The sole proprietorship, this refers to technically a person that's self-employed that wants to register his or her business. Partnership is a contract between two or more individuals that contribute money, property, or industry to a common fund with the intention of distributing profits among themselves. And the corporation, this is what we usually recommend to our clients, is a separate legal entity from those that form the business. So there are several types of corporations, and these are the usual types of legal entities that we register for our clients. The representative office and the branch office are foreign corporations, and the domestic corporation and the one-person corporation are branched as domestic corporations. Why is that? The main reason is that for foreign corporations, the governing law or the forming law of these entities are foreign law, where the head office is situated. For the domestic corporation, these are formed under Philippine laws. Normally, when we register companies for clients, we ask them one main question: what is your intended business activity in the Philippines? Because this will determine, or will help us determine, what the best type of entity would suit your planned business activity in the Philippines. So the distinctions are in my slide. Feel free to take a screenshot or take down notes. Normally, key considerations would be the capital requirements when setting up a company in the Philippines and mandatory appointees. So as a general rule, the capitalization requirement in the Philippines is $200,000. But if the company is at least 60% Filipino-owned, or if it's an export enterprise, meaning if at least 60% of revenues come from outside the Philippines, then essentially it can be any amount. The capital requirement can be any amount sufficient to support your business operations here. We usually recommend at least 100,000 pesos for the paid-up capital. All right. So these are the usual types of legal entities and the usual taxes imposed on legal entities in the Philippines: corporate income tax, value-added tax, local taxes, and final taxes. The corporate income tax rate in the Philippines is at 25% as a general rule. This can be lowered to 20% if the revenue of the company does not exceed 5 million pesos or its total assets does not exceed 100 million pesos. Of course, if the company is registered through investment promotion agencies like the PEZA, the BOI, or the CDC, there can be income tax holidays and exemptions for these other taxes applicable to legal entities in the Philippines. Like VAT, or value-added tax, is 12% on purchases and sales in the Philippines, except for export sales. Local taxes, this would depend on the city or the municipality where the company is located, the business address. All right. Next slide is a snapshot of how to register companies in the Philippines. Normally, when companies are registered here, they are registered with 7 different government agencies. We start with the SEC, or the Securities and Exchange Commission. This is the agency that issues the certificate saying that the company has been formed. The remaining agencies are the BIR, or the Bureau of Internal Revenue, the LGU, or the local government unit. This is where the city will be located or have its business address. And the last 4 are labor welfare agencies if the company will have employees in the Philippines. Next, we go to the investment promotion agencies in the Philippines, which my colleagues will be discussing more later on. I just prepared a slide for easy comparison between the 3 agencies and the incentives that they give, or they can give. So to begin with, registration with these agencies are optional, and not all companies are eligible. There are eligibility requirements. Okay, but if registered with these agencies, they allow for income tax holidays, all 3 of them. And in lieu of the income tax holidays, special corporate income tax rates can also be availed of, or an enhanced deduction after the lapse of the income tax holiday period. So the income tax holiday period is not forever. There's only a certain number of years. Afterwards, the special corporate income tax rate or the enhanced deductions will kick in. For value-added tax, 0% if allowed by these IPAs, or the investment promotion agencies. You're also allowed to get tax and duty-free exemptions if registered with these agencies. Local business taxes, generally exempt as well. Registrability will depend on eligible activities. What is your business activity? The PEZA, the BOI, and the CDC will all ask these questions and evaluate whether the company can be registered with these agencies. We offer services to assist with registration. So if you have questions later on, feel free to let us know, and then we can connect. Working location, this is also important to note. So the PEZA and the CDC generally require the employees to be on site, physically in the office, while the BOI allows for more flexibility, remote work for employees. So that's it for me. I hope that was insightful. Please allow me to give you back to our host for today to introduce the remaining speakers for today's session.
Thank you very much, Attorney Esther, for that comprehensive and enlightening presentation on Philippine market entry strategies. You've really highlighted the key factors businesses should consider when entering Philippine market. And now let's move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Attorney Mara Donna Yamat. She is a legal counsel and business consultant of InCorp Philippines. She helps clients with their legal compliance needs for business registration, product registration, corporate housekeeping, due diligence, and other related concerns. Her area of focus are incorporation, corporate compliance, and business advisory. She took up economics at the University of the Philippines and Juris Doctor at University of the Philippines as well. She is a member of the IPPs since 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Attorney Mara.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Orly. So, hello everyone, I'm Attorney Mara Yamat, and I'll be discussing the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, its incentives, its eligible activities, and the registration process. So first, let's just take a look at the outline of my presentation for today. So first, I'll be discussing briefly what is PEZA and the relevant laws that you need to look into if you want to read further into it. And next, I'll be discussing the fiscal and non-fiscal incentives granted by PEZA, its locations, and the eligible activities that can register to avail of their incentives. Next, I would be discussing the registration process as well as the requirements. And lastly, of course, I will be discussing how InCorp Philippines can help you with your registration. So now let's go to what is PEZA. So the Philippine Economic Zone Authority is is government agency that is tasked to extend assistance, register grant incentives to and facilitate the business operations of investors, specifically in export-oriented manufacturing and service facilities. So these facilities and also enterprises has to be located in areas that are proclaimed by the President of the Philippines as PEZA Special Economic Zones. So next, let's go to the relevant laws if you want to read on further. So we have Republic Act number 7916. That is the law that created PEZA and also provided the legal framework and mechanisms for the creation, operation, administration of special economic zones in the Philippines. You can also read into Republic Act number 8748. It was the law that amended Republic Act number 7916. And aside from that, you must also look into the rules and regulations to implement RA 7916. And of course, we also have Create Law, which was recently or kind of recent compared to the previous laws that I have mentioned. And aside from that, you must also look at the Strategic Investment Priority Plan to determine the tier of your industry. So just to let you know, as I mentioned a while ago, PEZA does offer incentives. So they have fiscal incentives and non-fiscal incentives. So for fiscal incentives, there are two main incentives I think everyone or most registrants are looking forward to. It's an income tax holiday. So the income tax holiday ranges from 4 to 7 years, depending on the location of your company or your intended business and your industry. And after the 4 to 7 years of income tax holiday, you have an option whether or not you choose enhanced deductions or a special corporate income tax of 5%. Aside from those two, we also have tax and duty-free importation of capital equipment, raw materials, spare parts, and accessories. We also have VAT exemption on importation and VAT zero rating on local purchases for goods and services directly or exclusively used in the registered project or activity. And aside from that, you're allowed to have domestic sales up to 30% of your total sales. And also included in the incentives is the tax exemption from local government taxes during the income tax holiday, and if you decide to avail of the special corporate income tax of 5% after. For the non-fiscal incentives, they have three. You have special non-immigrant visa with multiple entry privileges for foreign investors and their immediate family members. There is also employment of foreign nationals and a longer land lease of up to 75 years. So next, let's go on to the determination, how the PEZA determines the income tax holidays of your enterprise. So as you can see, it will depend, or as mentioned a while ago, it will depend on your location and also your specific business purpose. So for NCR, you have 4 years, and the further you go outside of NCR, the further you go from NCR, it will increase. So as you can see, for those metropolitan areas like Cebu or areas contiguous and adjacent to NCR like Bulacan, you get 1 year higher, so it's around 5 to 7 years. And for other areas, you get 6 to 7 years. As for the tier, it is best to look at the strategic investment priority plan of the government. But for your information in general, Tier 1 activities are those activities that are considered have high potential for job creation and takes place in sectors with market failures resulting in under-provisions of basic goods and services. But export services or most of PEZA eligible activities falls under Tier 1. But it's still subject to the appreciation of the PEZA themselves when you submit your documents already. Sorry. Now let's look at the different PEZA locations. So these are just sample PEZA locations, and just want to show that it's not just ecozones or vast tracts of lands, but PEZA locations can also be buildings. So we have, for example, the finance center located in BGC, but for industrial parks or actual ecozones, we have West Cebu Industrial Park in Cebu, and also the Kamanga Agro-Industrial Ecozone in Mindanao. So there are several locations, PEZA locations, and if you want to check them out, PEZA actually has a list of their locations in their website. So now let's move on to eligible activities that can register or could register to avail of the incentives. So based on the website of PEZA, they actually have 17 eligible activities. So they have export manufacturing, information technology service export, tourism, medical tourism, agro-industrial export manufacturing, agro-industrial biofuel manufacturing, manufacturing economic zone development and operation, logistics and warehouse services, IT park development or operation, tourism economic zone development or operation, medical tourism economic zone development or operation, agro-industrial economic zone development or operation, retirement economic zone development or operation, facilities provider for manufacturing enterprises, facilities provider for IT enterprises, retirement facilities provider, and utilities. So I will be discussing specifically or more in depth each of these eligible activities and what kind of enterprises are allowed under each eligible activity. So now let's go on to export manufacturing. So an export manufacturing has two kinds of entities. It's either you do manufacturing or processing or assembly. And based on PEZA, the definition of manufacturing or processing means that raw materials or semi-furnished materials must be converted into a new product through a change in their physical, mechanical, or electromagnetic characteristics or chemical properties. As for assembly, this means that semi-finished parts are put together or combined to form a distinct product without substantially changing its physical or mechanical characteristics or electromagnetic and/or chemical properties. It must also be noted that for export manufacturing, 70% of your export sales, 70% of your sales must be from export. So only up to 30% of your sales can come from the domestic sales. Next is information technology service export. So industries that can register under this activity or eligible activity are those that are IT-related activities in general, but specifically, PEZA has provided some examples. So these are software development and application, which includes programming, adaptation of system software and middlewares for business, media, e-commerce, education, entertainment, and others. They also allow IT-enabled services such as call centers, data encoding. They also include content development, knowledge-based and computer-enabled support services, including engineering and architectural design services, business process outsourcing, which includes e-commerce and IT research and development. And same as export manufacturing, you are only allowed up to 30% domestic sales out of your total sales. So 70% must be coming from export. So actually PEZA has specific guidelines on this one if you want to read further. They do have guidelines on the registration of information technology enterprises and then the establishment and operation of IT parks or buildings. So as for tourism includes sports and recreation centers, accommodation, convention, and cultural facilities and other special interests and attraction activities or establishments. PEZA only provides that only requirement is that you have to have foreign tourists as your primary clientele. So they did not really provide for a specific percentage as to the sales, but it only provides a vague term or a general term stating that your primary clientele must be foreign tourists. You can also look at the guidelines for the registration and administration of incentives to tourism ecozone developers or operators and locators for further information or for further reading. Next is medical tourism. Medical tourism includes medical services, surgical services, obstetric and gynecologic services, pediatric, perinatology, and neonatology services, dental and orthodontic services, optometry and orthoptic services, spa and health farms, drug addiction treatment and rehabilitation services. And just like tourism, as an eligible activity, you must also have foreign patients as your primary clientele. So actually, PEZA has a specific or a definition as to foreign patients or foreign tourists. They must be staying in the Philippines for more than 3 months already, or they must have a valid visa here in the Philippines. So there are also a specific guidelines provided by PEZA for medical tourism. It's called the Guidelines for the Registration and Administration of Incentives to Tourism Ecozone Developers / Operators of Medical Tourism Special Economic Zones. So you can look into that if you want to read more on the medical tourism enterprise. Next is agro-industrial export manufacturing or agro-industrial biofuel manufacturing. So this includes the following activities. So you can have import substituting, commercial production and processing of agriculture crops for biofuel, which includes, but it's not limited to coconut, jatropha, sugarcane, cassava, corn, and sweet sorghum. You can also register under this activity if you do processing or manufacturing for export of agricultural and marine products, and also for integrated livestock, poultry, and related projects involving primary production up to processing and export of final product, and also production of agricultural inputs such as feeds, veterinary drugs, and vaccines, projects involving the processing of agricultural waste materials, and also biotechnology products using agricultural products as inputs. So you can look at the guidelines for the registration and administration of incentives, so agro-industrial economic zone developers / operators and locators. And also, please also bear in mind that we do have a Filipino restriction or Filipino citizenship restriction when it comes to corn and rice. So if you will be doing agro-industrial export manufacturing or agro-industrial biofuel manufacturing that will be involving corn and rice, it's best to look at the foreign investment negative list as well, and also make sure that you are not, or if you will be restricted when it comes to the nationality of your shareholders. Next are the Economic Zone Logistics Services Enterprise. Actually, this one is kind of, it's kind of important to really know what kind of enterprises are included here, because it doesn't just include warehouses or operators of warehouse facilities, but it also includes those enterprises that wants to import materials here, whether raw, semi-furnished, or goods that are for resale that will be sold to another PEZA entity. So if you will be, let's say you're going to be importing, let's say, textile, and this textile will be sold to a client of yours that is also PEZA located, then they will be manufacturing it into clothing and then exported outside of the Philippines. Then your activity will be considered under the Economic Zone Logistics Services Enterprise, not export manufacturing or support as export manufacturing. So it's either for Economic Zone Logistics Services, again, it's either you do an operation of a warehouse facility or you import local sourcing of raw materials, semi-finished goods, and resell it to another PEZA registered enterprise. Based on the guidelines for Economic Zone Logistics Services Enterprises, the capital requirement for those enterprises that want to register under this eligible activity is around $200,000, which is the same as the regular requirement for domestic market enterprises that are foreign-owned. Next are the economic zone development and operation activities. So first, it's for the manufacturing enterprises. So we have a few actually for economic zone development and operation. So we have manufacturing. So of course, they must be for development, operation, and maintenance of an economic zone for export manufacturing enterprises, which is one of the eligible activities we have already talked about earlier. So they must include the required infrastructure, facilities, and utilities, such as light and power system, water supply and distribution system, storage and drainage system, pollution control devices, communication facilities, paved road network, and administration building. Next would be the economic zone development and operation of IT park and for IT IT enterprises. So based on their guidelines on the registration of IT enterprises and establishment and operation of IT parks/buildings, you need to have a minimum of 5 hectares in order to establish an IT park outside Metro Manila. However, for IT park or building within Metro Manila, you only need 5,000 square meters of available business floor area. Next would be the economic zone development and operation for tourism facilities. So you can look at the guidelines for the registration and administration of incentives to tourism economic zone developers, operators, and locators. So it's the same as the previous economic zone development operation. The basic or the general requirement would be that it must be able to support the tourist facilities and activities. So that will include the water supply facilities, power distribution facilities, drainage, and sewage systems. And based on their guidelines, they didn't really provide for a minimum floor area or square meter area. But if you will look at the BOI circular, if you will read into that in connection with other PEZA circulars, they might require a minimum of 1 hectare or 10,000 square meters for an IT park outside Metro Manila. Next would be the Medical Tourism Park Economic Zone Development and Operation. So for this one, again, it's the same. The general requirements would be the same, that it must be able to support the needs of those that will be locating in that eco zone. But based on the guidelines for the registration of medical tourism special economic zones and medical tourism locator enterprises, if you intend to set up a medical tourism park, it must be a minimum of 1 hectare. And if we will be creating a medical tourism building, if it's within Metro Manila and Cebu City, it must have a minimum of 5,000 square meters floor area. And if it's outside Metro Manila or not located in Cebu City, then you're required to have at least 2,000 square meters. Lastly, next would be the agro-industrial economic zone development and operation. So again, for this one, they still have the basic requirements for being able to provide for the necessary or basic needs of agro-industrial enterprises or agro-industrial manufacturing enterprises. But they have provided, or PEZA, based on their guidelines, has provided for a minimum floor area or minimum area for economic zones for agro-industrials. It must be around a minimum of 5 hectares. Lastly, for economic zone development and operation are those for retirement enterprises. So for retirement enterprises, if you intend to set up an eco zone for retirement enterprises, it must be a minimum of 4 hectares. And if it will be just a building or an eco zone center, it must have a minimum of 5,000 square meters floor area within Metro Manila and Cebu City. And outside of those areas, you need to have at least 2,000 square meters. And also, just take note that for all the economic zone development and operation, whether or not it's retirement, tourism, medical tourism, export manufacturing, in order to get 0 rated VAT, you need to have 70% of the leasable area must be for export enterprises. So that's the only time you can avail of the 0 rated for VAT. Next would be the retirement facilities. So retirement facilities, same as tourism, medical tourism, you must have foreign retirees as primary clientele. So that means that they must be here in the Philippines for at least 3 months, and they must have a valid visa. And this will include accommodation, retirement health wellness facilities such as spas and other wellness facilities, sports recreation centers, lifestyle facilities, cultural facilities, theme parks, and other utility services that are targeting retirement or retirees. And lastly, the last eligible activity to register under PEZA would be the utilities. So these are the establishment, operation, and maintenance of light and power systems, water supply and distribution systems inside special economic zones. Since we talked about already the eligible activities that can register with PEZA, let's go on to the registration requirements. So these are the initial basic documentary requirements to start your application process. So we have the application through EARS, the Project Feasibility Study, the anti-graft certificate, of course, the SEC registration documents that will include the Articles of Incorporation, Certificate of Incorporation, the bylaws of your company, and also your BIR certificate of registration. They would also be needing a projected financial statement, a notarized undertaking by the applicant, and also a secretary's certificate authorizing its registration with PEZA. So that is the initial basic documentary requirements you will need to start your application process. And just to show you the process flow chart or the progress, the registration progress. So we will be submitting our application at the very start. So we will be starting with the proponent, which is held by which is conducted by the Director General. And then the Enterprise Regulations Department will be evaluating our application. And once that is already evaluated, we will be receiving the board approval from the PEZA board. And then after that, we will be receiving a resolution of approval, and they will be asking the registrants to submit a pre-registration requirements. And these are the usual standard pre-registration requirements required by PEZA. So they are the SEC registration. So that is, again, the bylaws, the AOI, the COI of your company, acceptance letter or reservation for the economic zone location of the proposed project. They will usually require a copy of the application for ECC filed with the PEZA Environment Safety Group, and also payment of the registration fee, which is around 3,600 for application fee. Filing fee is 4,000 and registration fee is 6,000. So it's around 15,000 in total. So these are just the standard pre-registration requirements. So that means that it could be more, or PEZA will require more documents, because it's a case-to-case basis. So some companies will be required some documents, but some companies will be required a different set of documents. So, and then we will be submitting these pre-registration requirements, and this will be submitted to the legal services group, and they will be preparing the registration agreement between the registrant or the proponent and PEZA. And after that, they will be releasing or signing the registration agreement. This will basically be entailing all of the incentives that you are you can avail, or basically you are granted. So yeah, that's for the process flow chart of PEZA. And just to let you know, how can InCorp help you with your application? So actually, we will be helping you from start to finish. We will be holding you hand to hand or hand in hand to complete the process. So everything from the submission of EARS application with the pre-registration requirements or whatever requirements they will be asking for, we will be helping you, and we will be guiding you all throughout until we get the certification or until we get the incentives that your company will be needing from PEZA. So I think that's it for PEZA registration, or PEZA in general. I will be giving back the floor to our host, Orlymae.
Thank you so much, Attorney Mara, for that detailed and informative presentation on PEZA incentives, eligible activities, and the registration process. You really clarified how businesses can take advantage of the numerous incentives offered by PEZA, especially in terms of tax, holidays, exemptions, and the benefits of setting up in a PEZA economic zones. And now let's move on to our next speaker, who will be discussing tax incentives and benefits from the Board of Investments. So our third speaker is Attorney Emmanuel Fajilan. He is a senior legal counsel and business consultant of InCorp Philippines. He helps clients with their legal compliance needs for business registration, product registration, corporate housekeeping, due diligence, and other related concerns. His area of focus are incorporation, corporate compliance, and business advisory. He took up political science at St. Louis University and Juris Doctor at the same school, St. Louis University. He is a member of the IBP since 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Attorney Emmanuel.
Thank you, Orly, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Again, my name is Emmanuel, and it's my pleasure to share insights on how the Board of Investments can be a game changer for businesses looking to expand in the Philippines and take advantage of the various incentives available. The goal of today's session is to help you understand the process, benefits, and strategic value of getting BOI accreditation for your company. By the end of this session, you will have a clear idea of how BOI registration can benefit your business, the steps involved, and how we can support you in achieving this. But before we dive in, here's a quick overview of our agenda today. We'll start by clarifying what the Board of Investments is and how it plays a crucial role in promoting investments and economic growth in the Philippines. Then we'll discuss the advantages and incentives that come with BOI registration and why it is an opportunity worth considering for your business. Next, I'll cover the specific activities and sectors that are eligible for BOI registration and what it means for your operations. Lastly, I'll share some key points to keep in mind to ensure a smooth registration process and how to maximize your benefits. So what is the BOI? So the Board of Investments is an attached agency of the Department of Trade and Industry. It is the lead government agency that promotes investments in the Philippines. It plays a critical role in the development of key industries in the Philippines by offering a wide range of incentives that make it easier for businesses to thrive, particularly in priority sectors such as manufacturing, agribusiness, information technology and business process management, renewable energy, and infrastructures, among others. By doing so, BOI helps stimulate growth, create jobs, and drive innovation in the country. So here are the reasons why one may want to consider registration with the BOI. First would be the constitution of green lanes for strategic investments. Second would be the single point of entry through one-stop action center for strategic investments. Third would be allowance of work from home arrangement to certain industries. Fourth would be the fiscal incentives. And lastly, the non-fiscal incentives. One of the key reasons why businesses pursue BOI registration is to gain access to various fiscal incentives. Other than this, registration with the BOI provides much more incentives that can significantly improve operational efficiency and in turn enterprises' profitability. So again, one reason would be the constitution of green lanes for strategic investments. So Executive Order 189 took effect in February 2023, which is aimed to implement the ease of doing business reforms by the Marcos administration. It directs the state agencies and instrumentalities involved in the issuance of permits and/or licenses for industries deemed as strategic investments to take appropriate measures to maintain and promote transparency in transactions involving the public, including the adoption of unified and simplified requirements and procedures that will reduce red tape and expedite transactions with the government. The Green Lane initiatives provide a fast track for securing licenses and other documentary requirements, ensuring smoother and quicker processing. By registering with a BOI, your business can benefit from this highly efficient setup, removing much of the red tape that usually slows down the investments. So Executive Order 189 covers all government agencies and instrumentalities involved in the issuance of permits and/or licenses for industries deemed as strategic investments. Another reason for registering with the BOI would be the constitution of a one-stop action center for strategic investments, or we can just call it as OSACSI. So the DTI shall establish a one-stop action center for strategic investment, which shall serve as a single point of entry for all projects qualified as strategic investments. The OSACSI shall address investors' concern and endorse the same to the concerned government agencies for processing of permits and licenses and monitoring and reporting of actions taken thereon. The OSACSI shall include services shall include aftercare and post-investment assistance. This would allow businesses a direct and centralized point of contact, reducing the need to deal with multiple government agencies. This would save time and resources, making it easier to get your business up and running. Next would be the green lane for strategic investments. So again, the concerned government agencies are directed to establish a designate a green lane within their office in charge of expediting and streamlining the processes and requirements. Furthermore, such agencies or offices shall designate an account officer for the green lane who is responsible for coordinating with the OSACSI, relevant government agencies, in streamlining and simplifying the business permitting and licensing processings, and recommendation of modifications or amendments to existing procedures that are outdated, redundant, and adds undue regulatory burden and cost to the transacting public in coordination with the Anti-Red Tape Authority. Another reason why one should register with BOI is that the Executive Order 189 directs the concerned government agencies to act on the application for the issuance of permit or licenses within the prescribed processing time provided in the concerned agency's LGU or LGU's Citizens Charter, which shall not be longer than 3 working days in case of simple transactions, 7 working days in the case of complex transactions, and 20 working days for highly technical transactions from the date the complete application was received. The said maximum processing period may be extended only once for the number of days provided that the same is indicated in the Citizens Charter. In all cases, denial of such application shall be made in writing within the same period prescribed. The complete application for the issuance of a permit or license shall be deemed approved in case of a failure of the national government agency or LGU to act, whether to approve or disapprove within such period. Moreover, said executive order directs a simultaneous processing of application. So the national government agencies and LGUs that receive applications for permits and licenses shall process the same with the presumption that the relevant documents from other agencies have already been issued. The applicant shall execute an affidavit of undertaking that it has secured the relevant documents from a specific agency, or that it shall submit the complete documentary requirements within 30 working days. So said EO also allows for electronic submission of documents as much as practicable. As mentioned, most industries' primary reason for wanting to register with the BOI is to gain access to fiscal incentives granted by the Philippine government. I'll be discussing first the income tax holiday granted to successful BOI registrants. Let me draw your attention to the table as flashed on your screen. As you can see, the BOI grants income tax holiday depending on the tiers the industries fall under and in the location of the enterprise. The tiers represent the priority industries of the government, which we shall cover later. As you can see in the slides as well, the farther the enterprise is located in Metro Manila, the longer the income tax holiday entitlement is. Other fiscal incentives would also include duty-free importation of capital equipment, spare parts and supplies, VAT exemption and VAT zero rating on local purchases, and exemption from payment of local business taxes for the period of income tax holiday entitlement or as otherwise declared in the certificate of registration or incentives with the BOI. There are also non-fiscal incentives that we cannot overlook. First would be the employment of foreign nationals. This may be allowed in supervisory, technical, or advisory positions for 5 years from the date of registration. The president, general manager, and treasurer of foreign registered enterprises or their equivalent shall not be subject to the foregoing limitation. Next will be the visa facilitation assistance to the foreign nationals, their spouses, and qualified dependents. And lastly, the simplification of customs procedures for the importation of equipment, spare parts, raw materials, and supplies. Now let's move on to the essential part of today's discussion, the registrable activities under the latest Strategic Investment Priority Plan, or the SIPP. The SIPP outlines the activities and industries that the government seeks to encourage through BOI registration. So not later than the end of March of every year, the Board of Investment, after consultation with government agencies such as the NEDA, DOF, Department of Agriculture, Department of Energy, Department of Tourism, DOST, DICT, DOTR, as well as the private sector, they shall submit the plan to the President as the investment priority plan. So the latest Strategic Investment Priority Plan came to effect on June 14, 2022 through Memorandum Number 16, and it's still the prevailing SIPP as of now. So there are three different tiers under the 2022 Strategic Investment Priorities Plan. So under Tier 1, it would refer to all activities in the 2020 Investment Priority Plan. In summary, this refers to activities that are essential for building the fundamentals of a stronger economy. These sectors often focus on essential goods and services like agriculture, fisheries, food security, and health-related activities. On the other hand, Tier 2 focuses on activities that encourage green, sustainable economic development. This would include renewable energy initiatives, energy efficiency projects, and sustainable infrastructure, all of which are vital in addressing the current climate crisis. They will also cover defense-related activities, industrial value chain gaps, and food security-related activities. Tier 3 covers highly advanced activities that drive innovation, research and development, and breakthrough technologies. These activities contribute to positioning the Philippines as a key player in the global technological landscape. In the interest of time, I shall be focusing the discussion on specific industries, which, as per our experience, queries are mostly coming from. But in a snapshot, here are the qualified activities under Tier 1. First would be the qualified manufacturing activities. Second would be agriculture, fishery, and forestry. Third would be the strategic investments, strategic services, which are integrated circuit design. So integrated circuit design covers all logic and circuit design techniques required to design integrated circuits. Next would be the creative industries or knowledge-based services in the domestic market, and information technology business process management. This covers IT BPM services for the domestic market, such as contact centers, artificial intelligence and data science analytics services, back office support services, IT services, creative services, and other non-voice services. This also covers services that involve original content creation, such as animation, software development, game development, health information management systems, and engineering design. Another qualified under Tier 1 would be maintenance and repair and overhaul of aircraft, charging refueling station for alternative energy vehicles, industrial waste treatment, telecommunications, state-of-the-art engineering, procurement, and construction. It would also cover healthcare and disaster risk reduction management services, mass housing, infrastructure and logistics, including LGUs, public and private partnership projects, innovation drivers, inclusive business models, environment or climate change related projects, and energy. The Tier 1 would also cover export activities, such as the production and manufacture of export products. So this would cover service activities rendered to client abroad and paid for in foreign currency, with the export requirement of at least 50% of its revenue if Filipino owned, or at least 70% if foreign owned. This also covers non-voice business processing operations such as administrative and business services, including analytics, data management, engineering, and architectural services. For contact centers, project must have a minimum investment cost of the Philippine peso equivalent of $2,500 per seat to qualify for registration. So this amount covers the cost of equipment, hardware and software, office furniture and fixture, building improvements and renovation, and other fixed asset except land, building, and working capital. If the capital used were leased, the same should be converted to assets in terms of commercial interest rates and amortized over a 5-year period. If equipment were consigned, the same should have an assigned value to be part of the project cost. For IT BPM, upgrading of existing or baseline skills training program related to people, process, tools, and technology to a higher level of certification or standards may qualify for registration as modernization, subject to the conditions and requirements provided for by BOI. Export activities would also cover activities in support of exporters. Tier 1 would also cover industries that are involved in the implementation of special laws, such as the industrial tree plantation, mining, publication of printing of books and textbooks, refining, storage, marketing, and distribution of petroleum products. Tier 2, on the other hand, would refer to activities that are considered as green ecosystems. This would cover electric vehicle assembly, manufacture of EV parts, components and systems, establishment and operation of EV infrastructure, manufacture of energy-efficient maritime vessels and equipment, electronic devices, and circuits for smart grid and renewable energy, includes wearable solar devices, bioplastics and biopolymers, renewable energy, energy efficiency and conservation projects, energy storage technologies, and integrated waste management, disposal, and recycling. So for green ecosystems, applications for registration with the BOI must be accompanied by an endorsement from the Department of Energy. Tier 2 also covers health-related activities, defense-related activities, industrial value chain gaps, and food security-related activities. Tier 3, lastly, would cover research and development. So research and development includes activities adopting advanced digital production technologies of the fourth industrial revolution, such as but not limited to robotics, AI, additive manufacturing, data analytics, digital transformative technologies, for example, cloud computing services, hyperscalers, data centers, and digital infrastructure. Nanotechnology, including nanoelectronics, biotechnology production and or adoption of new hybrid seeds and other industry considered as 4.0 technologies. Tier 3 would also cover highly technical manufacturing and production of innovative products and services, as well as the establishment of innovation support facilities. So at our firm, we provide comprehensive assistance and legal support for businesses seeking to maximize benefits offered by the Board of Investments. Our services include application for registration under Book 1 of EO 226, as well as the legal and compliance services assistance in the securing of the certificate of registration and the certificate of income tax holiday entitlement. So let's now go to the BOI process. Here are the key steps involved. So I'd like to divide it into two parts. One would be the initial BOI initial consultation and assessment. So before applying, it is essential to check whether your business activity falls under the current SIPP. And these plans are issued by the BOI and list sectors eligible for activities. Next will be the BOI registration proper, where we shall file the application form along with the supporting documents and filing fee. preparation evaluation report, including publication of notice of filing of application and plant visit or site visit, present the application form, evaluation report, and supporting documents to the BOI Management Committee, wait for the confirmation and letter advice from the BOI Governing Board regarding board action, submit letter advice to the applicant of board action, and if approved, submit the letter of approval and comply with the pre-registration requirements. Of course, registration fees shall also be paid, and once these are all completed, the BOI shall issue the certificate of registration. So these are the basic documentary requirements that should be submitted along with our application. So these are, number one, the cover letter. Number two, accomplished, signed, and duly notarized BOI application form 501, Google map of the proposed and existing projects, business model, financial projections with breakdown of cost of sales and manufacturing expense covering at least 5 years, the audited financial statements, registration documents such as the certificate of registration with articles of incorporations, bylaws, other requirements or endorsements as may be required by certain areas of priority. So in a snapshot, here is the registration process. Pre-evaluation by the BOI representative, project evaluation by the board, and once approved, the issuance of the certificate of registration. Thank you once again for your time and interest in today's session. If you'd like to discuss your business eligibility or have any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. I've included my contact information in the slide for your convenience.
Thank you so much, Attorney Eman, for that insightful and thorough presentation on the Board of Investment and the various tax incentives available to businesses. I'm sure our participants now have a clear understanding of how to leverage these opportunities for their market entry and expansion strategies. Lastly, we will be diving into the tax incentives and business opportunities provided by the Clark Development Corporation or CDC. And now, let me introduce you to our speaker. Our last speaker is Attorney Alberto Jose Borja Bundalian. He is a legal counsel and business consultant of InCorp Philippines. He helps clients with their legal compliance needs for business registration, product registration, corporate housekeeping, due diligence, and other related concerns. His area of focus are incorporation, corporate compliance, and business advisory. He took up business administration at the University of the Philippines and Juris Doctor at Ateneo de Manila University School of Law. He is a member of the IBP since 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Attorney Albert.
Thank you very much, Orly, for your kind introduction. My colleagues and everyone, good morning. Today's discussion, we will cover essential aspects regarding and doing business in Clark Freeport Zone, starting with the latest trends and updates shaping this vibrant economic hub in Central Luzon. We will delve into recent developments and how they impact investment opportunities within Clark. Following this, we'll provide a brief history and overview of Clark Freeport Zone and the role of Clark Development Corporation in its evolution. We'll then highlight the key industries currently thriving in Clark, including manufacturing, logistics, and technology sectors. And we will put emphasis on the key incentives available under CREATE law that can be granted by Clark Development Corporation, which offers both fiscal and non-fiscal benefits for those businesses wanting to locate in Clark Freeport Zone. And finally, we'll outline the documentary requirements for registration with Clark Development Corporation, ensuring you have a clear understanding of the process for establishing operations and accessing these valuable incentives within Clark Freeport Zone. So let's now go to the ongoing trends in Clark. So as you've seen news articles previously, Clark is experiencing infrastructure boom in its jurisdiction. So the national government recognizes Clark's potential and its role in becoming a crucial economic hub in the Philippines. So you have various infrastructure projects like railway connections of north-south commuter railway, continuous expansion of road networks, expressways, and also the expansion of Clark International Airport Complex. Despite the fact that there's already a new passenger terminal currently operating in that facility. The national government plans to have Clark as an economic catalyst to boost local businesses and cater to foreign businesses as well, and attract tourists and business travelers, and also in order to enhance connectivity within Luzon, particularly in central and northern Luzon, connecting it with Mega Manila and other parts of the Philippines and the rest of the globe. So central to this vision, of course, by the national government is to promote regional development to areas outside of Metro Manila. And coincidentally, with the recently launched economic initiative by the United States, Philippines, and Japan, the recently launched Luzon Economic Corridor supports this vision. It's a collaboration among the three countries in order to connect vital economic corridors in Luzon, particularly Subic Bay, Clark, Metro Manila, and Batangas. So there will be driving of regional integration through strategic investments ranging from agribusiness, renewable or clean energy, semiconductors, and other types of businesses, particularly in logistics and infrastructure, in order for the Luzon Economic Corridor to be more economically viable, that will propel not just Clark Freeport Zone, but the entire Philippine economy to new heights. As Clark develops its infrastructure, it will facilitate efficient trade and investment, solidifying its position as a major aerotropolis in the Philippines, coinciding also with the promotions by the Clark Development Corporation to improve and continuously improve ease of doing business in the Freeport Zone. As evidenced by the recently posted amount of investments concluded in Clark Freeport Zone or committed in Clark Freeport Zone, as of date is at 44.4 billion Philippine pesos. So as you can see in this slide, it's a snippet of a news article which states that, which shows that Clark stands out as an ideal business hub in the Philippines due to the ease of doing business, skilled labor force, efficient logistical network, reliable utilities, and disaster-resilient facilities and infrastructure. Its strategic location further enhances its appeal as evidenced by this investment commitment and along with other types of investment activities currently happening in Clark. So for example, you have an expansion program by FedEx in its operations in Clark Freeport Zone under the Clark International Airport Complex. So in order to meet increasing air freight demand, particularly due to e-commerce transactions, among others, it wants to enhance, FedEx wants to enhance its support operations and networks of air freight hubs in Southeast Asia, Australia, and East Asia. Apart from FedEx, you also have UPS that is also planning to expand its operations in Clark Freeport Zone with the same trajectory with respect to air freight demand. And not just air freight, but also global air travel. With the resurgence after the pandemic, Clark International Airport has seen introduction or reintroduction of global airline brands wanting to tap the Philippine markets aviation sector. So you have budget airlines and full-fledged service airlines servicing Clark International Airport, connecting it to North America, Europe, and Asian destinations. So you have, for example, Emirates, Qatar Airways, Starlux, Eva Air, Asiana, among others. Apart from that, as I mentioned earlier, the Luzon Economic Corridor is a tripartite initiative by the United States, Japan, and the Philippines to support the ongoing commitment by the allies of the Philippines to support its economic development. So they've recognized the Philippines as has the potential to be a vital player in supply chain in the global supply chain that we have right now, given that most countries are trying to diversify their supply chain networks. So by enhancing transportation and logistical nodes along this corridor, with Clark being the linchpin of this corridor, Clark will be the central logistics hub for Central Luzon and Northern Luzon, and connecting majority parts of Luzon to the southern part of Luzon Island here in the Philippines. And this development model not only diversifies the engines of economic growth in the Philippines, but also underscores the importance of disaster resilience, as Clark being recognized as a disaster resilient growth center, and it provides crucial foundation for economic competitiveness in the era of climate change. Now, here are some of the sectors of businesses operating in Clark. So you have manufacturing, IT BPO, hotel and hospitality, recreational areas like golf course, water parks, and theme parks, and also casinos, retail malls, export enterprises, real estate development, logistics and warehouse, education and training, you name it, Clark has it. So it's Clark's strategic location supports all these types of business activities, and also the ease of doing business, and also the skilled labor force in the region that meets the growing demands, not just in the Philippines, but of course the Asia Pacific region as well. So there are also initiatives being done by the national government with the development of the adjacent area of Clark Freeport Zone, the new Clark City. The Philippine government commits that there will be national government offices operating in New Clark City, apart from other industrial areas in that area, that will complement the developments in Clark Freeport Zone, and particularly the ongoing expansion of Clark International Airport. Along with the ongoing expansion of Clark International Airport, they've recognized Clark Airport as a major logistics hub, both for air freight and passenger. That is why the national government has committed itself to build the Clark National Food Hub to promote food security and agribusiness activities that will cater both to domestic and export enterprises wanting to provide wholesale trading of food products or food processed items in that area. Apart from that, technology sector and innovation related businesses are key businesses that they try to attract in Freeport Zone, and they're currently succeeding in doing so, as there are many information technology as well as semiconductor manufacturers located and planning to expand in Clark Freeport Zone. Not only that, of course, with the businesses operating in Clark, real estate developers are taking a close look at Clark Freeport Zone with the development of residential inventory projects and commercial inventory space projects. So, and also, of course, when there's business, there's also pleasure. That is why tourism and leisure is also a key industry being considered as the key drivers of development in Clark, with various integrated resorts, well-renowned hotels and golf courses and recreational areas being built or already built in Clark Freeport Zone. And of course, the original, one of the pioneer industries in Clark Freeport Zone is the business process outsourcing industry. When the Americans left, that's one of the first types of industries that set up business in Clark Freeport Zone. Okay, so just to show to you what are the brands, what are the types of businesses currently in Clark, apart from those previously mentioned. So you have those business process outsourcing companies in Clark Freeport Zone. They are operating there, and they have a huge labor force right now, and they have a vast available talent pool in the peripheral areas of Clark Freeport Zone. Apart from that, you can see that manufacturers are also in Clark Freeport Zone, particularly automotive, like that of Yokohama, a Japanese tire manufacturer. They committed to expand their operations in Clark Freeport Zone to meet growing demands with respect to their tire business in the ASEAN region. Apart from that, you also have an American company, Texas Instruments. It has committed further expansion on its current facility in Clark Freeport Zone, along with its facility in Baguio Freeport Zone. So semiconductors in particular are availing of Clark's strategic location and reliable utilities to be able to channel their potential to be able to tap to the latest legislation in the United States as well with respect to the CHIPS Act. The U.S. Legislated a way to diversify their semiconductor supply chain. So apart from Texas Instrument, you also have SFA Semicon. If you have Samsung gadgets with you right now, so as most probably some of those components came from Clark. So SFA Semicon also committed to expand its manufacturing capacity in Clark Freeport Zone. And then not only in semiconductors, with the rising trend right now of electric vehicles, there is a recent commitment in Clark Freeport Zone that an American company will set up business to build, manufacture commercial vehicles for export, recognizing the logistical network Clark has in close proximity with Subic Freeport Zone and Port of Manila. It makes an ideal spot for setting up factories and streamlining supply chain. And also, as I mentioned earlier, world-renowned hotel brands are taking a close look at Clark. So you have hotel brands like Swiss Hotel, Marriott, Hilton, and the reintroduction of Intercon brand in the Philippines will be made in New Clark City and Radisson Blu, among other world-renowned hotel brands already setting up business in Clark in partnership with other developers, also building integrated resorts in Clark Freeport Zone, recognizing it as a major tourist destination in the Philippines. Now, all this thanks to the ongoing infrastructure development being spearheaded by the national government in coordination also with multilateral financial institutions like that of JICA and Asian Development Bank. So the revival of North-South commuter railway connection, it connects and intertwines approximately 50 million residents in Mega Manila area. So you can just imagine the talent pool that Clark offers in conjunction with other development regional economic growths across Luzon, at the island of Luzon. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, Intercon. Also, just a side note, BPO companies setting up business in Clark, they offer wide variety and diverse work experiences for individuals also working in Clark Freeport Zone. And they have a diverse background. So you have American companies, Singaporean companies, Australian, British, New Zealander, Indian, Malaysian, Emirati, European, Japanese, Korean, Taiwanese, and Chinese, among others, who are already in Clark Freeport Zone. And therefore, they enhance both local and community interactions, both for economic and cultural experiences as well. Now, as you can see, it's not just about manufacturing and business process outsourcing. You also have aviation-related businesses, because after all, Clark is being molded as an aerotropolis here in the Philippines. So, availing of this strategic location infrastructure, the government also invites businesses related to aviation, both for manufacturing and maintenance repair operations, and consider Clark as their Southeast Asian hub with respect to servicing their clients overseas. Now, what's all about Clark before Clark Freeport Zone? So Clark used to be the largest overseas military base of the United States outside of continental United States. It was named in honor of Major Harold M. Clark, an aviation pioneer in the United States. And throughout history, Clark Air Base served the purpose of projecting U.S. military power, global presence across the region, specifically in Asia-Pacific region. So throughout the 20th century, it supported America's efforts in promoting peace and security in that area, and along with its allies. So just take note that At one point, critics or commentators referred to the entire Philippines as an unsinkable aircraft carrier by the United States, primarily because of Clark, because it hosts the largest Air Force base outside of continental United States. So just to give you an idea, Clark area covers 3 provinces. You have Pampanga, Tarlac, and Zambales. And the elevation of that area is 470 feet above sea level. With the surrounding mountain ranges, it offers good protection for valuable U.S. Air Force assets in that area, which up to this date is true because even with the recent onslaught of Typhoon Enteng and other types of natural disasters, Clark remains resilient and there are minimal or absolute zero disruption when it comes to work in Clark Freeport Zone. So just to give you an idea what Clark used to look like, that is the Clark Air Force Base zoning map. Up to this day, that's the foundation for the current Clark Freeport Zone. So it hosted residential areas for commissioned, non-commissioned officers and enlisted personnel of United States Armed Forces, as well as some members of the United States Navy. So you have a golf course there for commissioned officers and enlisted personnel. You can see the aprons and runways there. That's the Clark International Airport right now. And a fun fact and trivia, the runway there, the Clark International Airport, it was designated by the United States Air Force and NASA as an emergency landing area for space shuttles during the existence of space shuttle program of NASA in the United States. So you can just see that the facilities there, most of them, they still exist today because of the resilient and durable construction methods done by the United States government at the time. So it was dubbed as Little America. It was like an American small city transplanted to the island of Luzon in the Philippines that time. So you can see some assets there by the United States Air Force. And now, of course, everything, now that the Americans left, when the Americans left, they turned over the jurisdiction and control over those former military bases to the Philippine government. And the Philippine government at the time has a predicament how to continue those areas to be economically viable, given that at the time, Americans were just in Clark alone, they employed directly 14,200 Filipino civilian employees. And take into consideration also the multiplier effect when there is economic activity like that in Clark Air Force Base. So that is why the Philippine government passed a law, Bases Conversion Development Act, to propel and continue the role of these facilities as economic growth centers for regional areas outside of Metro Manila. So that is the reason why Clark Freeport Zone and Clark in general stands today as a vibrant economic hub in areas of central and northern Luzon. So as you can see, the subsidiary of Bases Conversion Development Authority, the main government arm ensuring the development of and conversion of these former U.S. military bases, in particular with respect to Clark Freeport Zone, is Clark Development Corporation. So again, it is a subsidiary of BCDA, tasked with managing and developing Clark Freeport Zone, aligning it with BCDA's vision of transforming Clark Air Force Base into a thriving economic hub. CDC oversees zones physical development, including infrastructure and real estate projects, and promotes Clark as a prime investment destination. Additionally, CDC manages the economic zone by offering incentives via the CREATE law right now that we have, which supports BCDA's goal of leveraging former military bases to boost economic growth and job creation. Beyond these responsibilities, CDC also plays a critical role in fostering partnerships and collaborations with various stakeholders, including local governments, businesses, and community groups. By engaging these partners, CDC ensures that development efforts are well coordinated and aligned with broader regional and national objectives. And this collaborative approach helps address the needs of investors and residents alike, creating a balanced and sustainable growth environment within Clark Freeport Zone. Through strategic planning and community engagement, CDC not only advances economic development, but also enhances the overall quality of life within Clark Freeport Zone, reinforcing its position as one of the leading business and investment hubs in the Philippines. As you can see, this is what Clark Freeport Zone looks like today. You have numbers 2, 3, and 4. The entire highlighted area is Clark Freeport Zone. But numbers 3 and 4, that is considered Clark International Airport Complex. So just to give you an idea of how huge Clark is, currently Metro Manila's land area is around 620 square kilometers. Divided by 2, that's almost the land area of Clark in general. Delve into the Clark Freeport Zone, and that is the fenced area consisting of 4,400 hectares. So you have an airport which has approximately 2,100 hectares of land area, along with a vibrant city supporting various types of business activities. And that's since Americans left in 1991. So as you can see, Clark has a master plan. All right. You have areas designated for certain for purpose, certain business activities. So for today's discussion, we'll be focusing our attention to numbers 2, 3, and 4 areas. But just a brief description. Number 1, that is the new Clark City. So that is where most government agency offices will be set up, because it's also part of the national government's initiative to have a disaster resilient backup solution if ever something happens to the national capital region. So New Clark City can fulfill functions that are being done as well by national government agencies within Metro Manila. So that is why the national government is promoting New Clark City with respect to government agencies that plan to set up business there. Apart from that, there are also industrial areas in New Clark City. But for our discussion for this morning, we will focus our attention to items 2, 3, and 4. That is Clark Freeport Zone. So that's the portion where the airport is located and all the various types of businesses that we mentioned earlier are located. So again, Clark Development Corporation is dedicated to enforcing this master plan, ensuring balance and sustainable growth. There are specific areas for specific types of businesses. So this approach creates an ideal environment for all types of businesses that plans to establish or set up business in Clark Freeport Zone, ensuring that the investors has a viable, secure, and stable investment opportunities in Clark. Okay, now let's go to the role of Clark Development Corporation as an investment promotions agency under CREATE Law. As an IPA, CDC plays a crucial role in attracting and facilitating investments within Clark Freeport Zone. This designation empowers CDC to offer a range of incentives to both local and international investors, thus enhancing the appeal of the area for business ventures. CDC's role includes administering a variety of fiscal and non-fiscal incentives such as tax exemptions, deductions, which create a supportive business environment. Beyond incentives, of course, CDC provides extensive support for business development, including help with permits, regulatory compliances, and other operational needs. This comprehensive assistance streamlines the investment processes and fosters a conducive economic and environmental opportunities for business growth in Clark Freeport Zone. Just to give you an idea, Clark Freeport Zone spans 2 cities of Pampanga, Angeles City and Mabalacat City. But the ultimate estate plan developer or manager of Clark Freeport Zone will be Clark Development Corporation. Now, let's proceed with Clark's vision and mission for Clark Freeport Zone. Now, the vision for Clark by 2030 is to have a modern, sustainable aerotropolis. It is on track in doing that given the recent developments that we've discussed earlier. And the ultimate mission of Clark Development Corporation is to transform Clark into a premier business and tourism destination to become a catalyst of growth and nation building. Mind you that the ultimate goal of the government really is to convert former US military bases into economic growth centers, not just for the local population surrounding the area, but to contribute to the overall national development in the country. As our population is growing by through the years, there is more need to provide livelihood opportunities, not just within Metro Manila, but all other regional growth areas like in Clark Freeport Zone. So uh, just to show to you the organizational structure of Clark Development Corporation, currently it's being headed by President of Clark Development Corporation, Attorney Agnes de Vanadera. Um, Clark Freeport Zone has emerged as a premier destination again for both local and foreign investors, thanks of course to the business-friendly policies of Clark Development Corporation. They have spearheaded automation initiatives that streamline approval processes and minimize delays. They're also in the process of reducing human intervention in order to accelerate turnaround times and making things easier to do business ever more than before in Clark Freeport Zone. So CDC has made business application forms publicly accessible and is developing new online platforms and departments, of course, to simplify and to simplify issuance of permits and license applications. This aligns with the administration's of the this aligns with the government's whole of government approach to enhance efficiency for business registration, particularly in Clark Freeport Zone. So, recognizing its potential as an economic powerhouse, the Philippine Economic Team is actively promoting Clark Freeport Zone, New Clark City, and other areas within Clark as prime investment opportunities. Um, let me just highlight the department in charge with respect to locators registration in Clark. Through CDC's Business Development and Business Enhancement Group, potential locators can easily submit their applications and seek approval to set up business in Clark Freeport Zone. So this dedicated team streamlines the processes, providing essential support and guidance to ensure a smooth and efficient experience for businesses looking to invest in this thriving economic hub in the Philippines. Okay, so let's go by the numbers. Clark Freeport Zone, as of date, is a host to as much as 1,161 business locators. And there are approximately 136,000 plus individuals employed in Clark Freeport Zone alone. And it is expected to attract even more investors and locators in the coming years. Clark Freeport Zone also stands out not only for its economic vitality, but also for its commitment to a balanced development in relation to nature-friendly policies and priority when it comes to green spaces and open spaces. So that's why Clark offers a unique experience for those operating or visiting Clark. It has this work-life balance that many of us crave for because after work you can enjoy stroll in the park in one of many parks in the Clark Freeport Zone. This offers a unique blend for both local and tourists to benefit from the vibrant economic environment alongside with serene, peaceful, and relaxing natural surroundings in Clark Freeport Zone. Apart from that, of course, as an economic hub, as of 2021, Clark Freeport Zone was able to generate approximately 7.1 billion US dollars worth of export sales. So, mind you, this is at the time of pandemic. So, this substantial figure highlights the zone's significant role and resilience in the global market and its attractiveness as a hub for international trade and business. So, to establish presence in Clark Freeport Zone, businesses have two primary options. Either they engage in direct lease with Clark Development Corporation or sublease agreements with various real estate developers already offering commercial or office spaces in Clark Freeport Zone. So later we will discuss those arrangements. But as highlighted earlier, Clark Freeport Zone benefits from world-class infrastructure and logistical networks, ensuring seamless travel for both freight and passenger services. Its strategic location supports efficient ground, air, and sea transports, making it an ideal hub for businesses requiring robust connectivity. Currently, travel time between points within Clark Freeport Zone remains impressively short, averaging just 15 minutes by vehicle. This efficient internal transportation system enhances convenience and productivity for businesses and residents, making it easy to navigate the area and access various facilities and services swiftly. This comprehensive transport system enhances operational efficiency and accessibility, contributing significantly to Clark's appeal as a premier investment destination in the Philippines. As Secretary Delphine Lorenzana of BCDA says, we are right smack at the center of this economic corridor, as illustrated in this slide. Okay, in terms of labor pool, in the surrounding areas of Clark Freeport Zone, the surrounding areas of Clark Freeport Zone is collectively known as Metro Clark. So you have Angeles City, Mabalacat City, Porac, and other areas of Pampanga and Tarlac. So they provide a young, dynamic, and diverse workforce. This talent pool is highly proficient and capable of supporting a wide range of industries within Freeport Zone. So the availability of skilled work professionals enhances Clark's appeal as a business hub, offering companies access to robust and versatile workforce ready to meet various industry demands. Now, in terms of utilities, everything in Clark is world class. So, in addition to the talented labor pool, Clark Freeport Zone's ongoing success is supported by its ever reliable and efficient utility services, ranging from high quality internet, electricity, water supply, and sanitation services. Now, these essential utilities ensure a seamless operational environment and reinforces Clark's status as a premier investment hub in the Philippines. Now, to reiterate, these are the industries currently operating in Clark Freeport Zone. So you have information technology and business process outsourcing companies, manufacturers, traders, leisure and tourism operators, restaurants and cafe. As you know, in Pampanga, it's a culinary capital here in the Philippines. So it's lunchtime during this presentation, so maybe you can drop by to Pampanga after this call. And then real estate development, logistics, and of course, airspace industry related businesses. Now, let's now go to the types of locators that want to go in Clark Freeport Zone. There are two types in terms of taxpayers classification. So number one, we have those locators that want to locate in Clark Freeport Zone but still retain themselves as regular taxpayers, mainly because they want to be a part of the business ecosystem in Clark Freeport Zone, utilize the reliable infrastructure and utilities in Clark Freeport Zone, and enhance their business activity or expand their business presence in Metro Clark area. Now, number two, we have locators that want to locate in Clark Freeport Zone and avail of tax incentives under CREATE law. These locators are either export-oriented enterprises or domestic market enterprises. So let's now go to the types of eligible activities in Clark Freeport Zone. As mentioned by our previous resource persons earlier, Clark Development Corporation will evaluate the eligibility of the activity based on the latest strategic investment priorities plan. So this was discussed previously. You have various tiers of business activities. So there are preferred activities, export activities, activities under special laws, green ecosystems, and all other enumerated areas. But the main threshold that we need to consider if ever we are planning to set up business in Clark is with respect to the investment capital threshold for projects to be committed in Clark Freeport Zone. So if the investment capital threshold will be 15 billion pesos and below, the investment promotions agency or the approving body will be Clark Development Corporation. But if the investment capital threshold exceeds 15 billion Philippine pesos, then along with Clark Development Corporation's endorsement, there has to be approval also by the Fiscal Incentives Review Board. In either case, the Fiscal Incentives Review Board, along with Clark Development Corporation, retains the power to monitor the compliance of all registered business entities of their performance commitments as conditions for grant of incentives, regardless of the amount of investment capital that they've committed. Okay, so as you can see, it's a sample, it's a snippet of the memorandum circular issued by Clark Development Corporation in relation to the online platform being implemented by Fiscal Incentives Review Board for all investment promotions agencies with respect to applications for fiscal incentives. So, Fiscal Incentives Review Board mandates investment promotions agencies like Clark Development Corporation to process the applications or online monitoring system known as Fiscal Incentives Registration and Monitoring System, or FIRMS. It's an online registration and incentives application portal that allows investors and enterprises to submit and monitor applications for incentives with any of the investment promotions agencies like Clark Development Corporation. So who should create FIRMS accounts? These businesses looking to register new activity or project and apply for tax incentives, of course, with the assistance of Clark Development Corporation in the case of Clark Freeport Zone. And also, what are these incentives? So, in the Philippines, with the CREATE law, it unifies the incentives that will be given to businesses under various investment promotions agencies. But let us just focus our attention to Clark Freeport Zone. So, as mentioned by previous speakers, the duration of income tax holiday, for example, it depends on where you locate your office space or business in the Philippines. In Clark Freeport Zone, since it's an hour and a half drive away from Metro Manila, it's considered to be all other areas. So the shortest period of time for income tax holiday will be at least 6 years for either export or domestic market enterprises, and as long as 7 years income tax holiday for either of the two industries. And of course, after the income tax holiday period, there are two options for export market enterprise or domestic market enterprise entities. So they can avail of enhanced deductions as enumerated herein, or they can avail of special corporate income tax rate of 5%. So in either case, the Fiscal Incentives Review Board, again, along with Clark Development Corporation, will still retain the power to monitor and the compliance of all the registered business entities of their performance commitments as conditions for grant of tax incentives within Clark Freeport Zone. Okay, next. Also, on top of the incentives set by CREATE law, through its own initiative, Clark Development Corporation streamlines business processes in Clark Freeport Zone. With the launch recently of Business One-Stop Shop, or BOSS, it's last November 6. It's designed to simplify the process of obtaining permits and licenses for Clark investors. BOSS offers a range of services from pre-application counseling to post-approval monitoring. This initiative aims to enhance the attractiveness of Clark Freeport Zone as a premier investment destination in the country. So just in July also, Clark Development Corporation launched online business registration application system, or OBRA system, which offers the following benefits. Number one, quick online access for submission and monitoring of applications for sublease approval and authority to operate. So later I will discuss what authority to operate means. Also, online notifications within Clark Development Corporation regulatory divisions. So they try to approach it as a whole of government approach, so that everyone will be in sync during the application process, thereby reducing the need for physical interactions between applicant and Clark Development Corporation regulatory divisions. And also online CDC endorsement to the Bureau of Internal Revenue. The Revenue District Office in Clark is Revenue District Office 21C. In Clark for the sublessee certification of registration, eliminating the need for physical submission of CDC letter endorsement to RDO 21C of BIR in Clark. And also simultaneous notifications to all CDC regulatory divisions to inform them that the applicant is registered, facilitating the completion of post-registration requirements before the issuance of the authority to operate. And the spearheading department of Clark Development Corporation throughout all this will be the Business Development and Business Enhancement Group of Clark Development Corporation. Okay, so just to wrap up our discussion with respect to Clark Development Corporation incentives, so we will just go over the process of registration with Clark Development Corporation. Everything starts with pre-evaluation, and then the Clark Development Corporation will evaluate the project for registration, and ultimately the end product will be the issuance of authority to operate by Clark Development Corporation. As you can see, there are various pre-evaluation criteria. For those planning to locate in Clark that are not that will not be availing of tax incentives, it's a simple registration with Clark Development Corporation. But for those wanting to avail of tax incentives, the business must be within the SIPP, and they must prepare cost benefit analysis, and there must be a term commitment that they will stay in Clark Freeport Zone for at least 16 years. Okay, so with respect to the documentary requirements, everything starts with the letter of intent along with the required supporting documents. So there are, you can see the documentary requirements must be prepared prior to the actual evaluation by Clark Development Corporation. And this is the application for registration. I would like to highlight the point for Clark Development Corporation that they are very particular with respect to the office address. It has to be a physical office within the Freeport Zone, and as much as possible, it has to adopt on-site work environment. So hence, there are many criteria with respect to either lease or sublease arrangements and various endorsements by respective parties with respect to the lease arrangements adopted by the locator in Clark Freeport Zone. As you can see, they are very particular also with respect to the type of business entity planning to locate in Clark Freeport Zone. And also, if ever the locator will either be a regular taxpayer or a taxpayer that wants to avail of incentives within Clark Freeport Zone. If the applicant is a corporation, the corporation must lay down their company profile. So there are details that they need to fill out, especially the stockholders or directors or key officers of the corporation, as well as, most importantly, if the entity is new, because again, incentives can be granted to new entities planning to open business within Clark Freeport Zone. So also the primary purpose has to be disclosed. But if the operator is a sole proprietor, then there has to be DTI certification, among other information stated herein. Apart from that, Clark Development Corporation is very particular with respect to the disclosure of source of funds and projected return of investments. This is to ensure that the business has a viability to sustain its operations and generate jobs in Clark Freeport Zone. Also, again, Clark is very particular with the lease arrangements. There has to be physical office space by the locator in Clark Freeport Zone. No virtual office address is allowed in the Freeport Zone, and as of date of this presentation, CDC requires locators to have on-site workforce. With respect to manpower requirements, they also require the disclosure of the skill set required if ever there will be any special skill sets that needs to be done by the locator. And also commitment investment cost or project cost within Freeport Zone. Okay. And also several undertakings that needs to be executed by the applicant. Most importantly, with respect to providing quality jobs and with respect to hiring the labor force with the priority of those located within the peripheral areas of Clark Freeport Zone. In terms of timeline, Clark Development Corporation also requires estimated timeline for the project from its inception all the way down to its start of operations. And this annex also requires the disclosure of the projected or estimate utility consumption by the proponent or locator in Clark Freeport Zone in order for it to check if the utilities in Clark Freeport Zone can accommodate the power, water, telecommunication, and sanitary requirements of this project. And also an undertaking that, of course, the locator commits itself not to promote or commit any felonies within Freeport Zone with the stated felonies in this undertaking specific, and that Clark Development Corporation reserves its right to revoke any authority to operate if ever there will be any violations to the tenor of this undertaking. And this particular annex is with respect to those entities wanting to avail of tax incentives in Clark Freeport Zone. So this is the business model that they have, that the applicant has to break down the business activity, the income source, as well as if whether or not this income source will be as an export or domestic source of income. If ever the client name and countries where they plan to sell this business activities, the list of suppliers that they have, the list of importable items that they will be utilizing for this project, and the local purchases for purposes of VAT exemption in relation to local suppliers that they are dealing with within the Philippines. So all in all, assuming all the documentary requirements are being completed, Clark Development Corporation undertakes that they have at least they have 2 to 3 weeks from the submission of all the required documentary requirements in order for them to determine whether or not they can issue the authority to operate. So what is the authority to operate? This is in lieu of the mayor's permit in either Mabalacat City or Angeles City for Clark Freeport Zone. So it's like a mayor's permit, but not only mayor's permit, but also it permits the locator in Clark Freeport Zone, and also identifies the sublessors or sublessee, identifies also where the office is located and the incentives, if ever there are any, with respect to the locator in Clark Freeport Zone. So an advantage of this is that the authority to operate is good for 3 years, renewable for every 3 years. Unlike in a regular business setup outside of Clark Freeport Zone, wherein you need to renew your mayor's permit every year in various local government units. So apart from the incentives in Clark, other advantages of doing business in Clark is, of course, no traffic congestion, and bike-friendly pathways, no pollution, ease of doing business, ease of logistics and movement of raw materials, of course, great food scene, and above average consumer confidence. There are many retailers setting up malls in Pampanga, particularly in areas surrounding Clark Freeport Zone. Again, it offers strategic location, disaster resilient geography, most importantly for employees in the Philippines, work-life balance, and clean surrounding and green spaces for relaxation. And of course, great people forming the immediate and surrounding communities of Clark because of the local community as well as foreigners currently located or residing in Clark Freeport Zone. So finally, Clark slogan is "It works like a dream." I added it a future that where the future is now, the future is Clark. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time. If ever you need any further clarifications or questions, you can reach out to us, and we are happy to assist you every step of the way if you plan to set up business in Clark and the rest of the Philippines.
Thank you very much, Attorney Albert, for that very informative and insightful presentation on the Clark Development Corporation and the unique tax incentives and business opportunities available in the Clark Freeport Zone. I'm sure our participants now have a better understanding of why Clark is such an attractive destination for both local and international investors. Now we will move on to the Q&A portion of today's webinar. So we have received advanced questions from the audience, and we'll try to get through as many as we can. So if you haven't submitted your questions yet, feel free to type it in the Q&A box and we'll do our best to address it. So let's get started with the first question. So what are the key considerations for foreign businesses entering the Philippine market? Attorney Esther?
Yes. Okay. I hope I'm audible. So thank you, Orly, for the question. I'd like to answer this question in consideration of key considerations and challenges in entering the Philippine market. So along with the key considerations are also challenges. I think first would be to conduct market research to really understand the Philippine market. aside from also understanding your planned business activity in the Philippines, because there are certain nuances in the Philippines. Aside from market research, is also consider the regulatory environment of the Philippines. You may want to hire a good consultant to assist you with compliance requirements, because as we mentioned a while ago, registering a business in the Philippines would entail registering with around 7 different government agencies. And then if you avail of tax incentives or other incentives through the IPAs and investment promotion agencies, registration with these agencies would also have compliance requirements. So doing your market research, understanding the regulatory environment are important considerations and also challenges when registering in the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney Esther. For our second question, what are the common challenges foreign businesses face when entering the Philippine market?
Okay. Actually, I think the first question is tied to this question as well. Challenges in the Philippines. As some of you may know, the Philippines currently ranks as 95th in terms of ease of doing business here. So there are some regulatory challenges in the Philippines. So it's important to navigate this properly. You may want to, again, hire a good consultant to assist you or do your research beforehand in order to avoid issues in the future, legal issues. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney Esther. For our third question, so we have here an anonymous attendee. We have been granted BOI, Board of Investment Incentives, and we are inquiring about our eligibility to avail of the income tax holiday, despite not yet having an export permit. One of the conditions for the availing of ITH is that enterprise must export at least 50% of its total production. However, we are currently unable to export directly due to the absence of an export permit. Our affiliate company handles the exportation of our products. In this case, can we still be considered to meet the export requirements if our affiliate company performs the export? Is there any specific law or regulation that allows for this arrangement? Okay, Attorney Emmanuel?
To answer this question, we must ascertain what specific activities are covered by the BOI registration and incentives. If it is an export enterprise under Tier 1, the requirement is that the export should be paid for in foreign currency, and the aggregate export should at least be 50% in case it is Filipino-owned. The BOI has specific guidelines, however, and requirements for demonstrating compliance with the export's obligation. So it is essential to consult with the BOI's investment promotion specialists or legal division to ensure that the arrangement with the affiliate meets all the regulatory requirements for the permit granted. Thank you.
All right, I hope your question was answered. And then another question. For PEZA BOI registered business, how Create More Act will affect the businesses?
Hi, Orly, and also to the person who asked that. I'll be answering that on behalf of the team. So for PEZA or BOI registered businesses, when it comes to Create More Act, and I believe the Create More Act is it just passed the third reading with the Senate, so it's not yet considered a law, it's not yet in effect. So I advise that we wait until we see the full text of the law as approved by the president. But some things we need to look at would be the additional incentives or the additional tax or non-fiscal incentives that it will be giving to current businesses, because it could provide, let's say, a transition period wherein current businesses that are registered with PEZA or BOI will also be availing or will be able to avail of the incentives granted by the Create More Act. So I think it will be interesting to look at, or it will be interesting to watch.
Okay, thank you so much, Attorney Mara. Are there any more questions from our audience? Please feel free to ask. Okay. So, for another question, what are the best tax incentive options for existing business manufacturing export that would be applying for BOI expansion?
So I'll answer that question, Orly. Ideally, the applicants with the investment promotions agencies, including the BOI, should be new project or enterprise. So based on the guidelines of the BOI, new project or activity would refer to the activities that are listed in the SIPP that has not started any commercial operations. So for any enterprise that has already started their commercial operations, the only way for them to qualify for BOI incentives is if the projects being applied for are qualified as expansion projects. So our expansion projects would refer to projects of existing enterprises that would involve the installation of additional facilities, equipment that will result in the increase in capacity of the same or similar activity within the same existing plant or facilities of the enterprise. Projects that do not qualify as new shall be considered as expansion. Yeah, so I hope the question has been answered. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney
Attorney
Emma.
Emma,
So
so
if there are
short and no more question. So, well, that brings us to the end of today's webinar. On behalf of our team, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to all of our speakers for sharing their valuable insights on Philippine market entry and the tax incentives available through PEZA, BOI, and CDC. Your expertise has certainly given our audience a clear understanding of the opportunities for businesses in the Philippines. So a big thank you as well to our attendees for taking the time to join us today. We hope you found the presentations and discussions valuable and that they will help you guide your business decisions moving forward. So if you have any further questions or need additional information, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. So we are here to support you in your journey toward entering or expanding in the Philippine market. We would also appreciate your feedback on today's webinar. So please take a few moments to fill out the feedback form that we will be sending to you after the event. So your input will help us improve our future events. Again, thank you all for participation and engagement. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Until then, take care, stay safe, and have a great day ahead. Bye!